Hello and welcome to video number 3 in my series on naming and formula writing. This video is going to focus on binary covalent compounds. Binary, like the name implies, is when you have a situation where there are only two types of atoms. So if you'll notice in this first sample, which we'll name in a moment, I have chlorine and oxygen. Here I have phosphorus and sulfur. Here I have nitrogen and fluorine. So there are really only two types of atoms. The other thing that distinguishes this from the ionic naming that we just did is, if you'll notice, both of the elements are nonmetals. They are in the upper right hand portion of the periodic table. That stair-step line that starts between boron and aluminum and works its way down divides the metals and the nonmetals in your periodic table. Both of these elements are to the upper right hand side. So when you're doing naming, the way you distinguish this type of naming from the ionic, which we did in the previous videos, is by looking at that first element. If it's to the upper right of that line, you're going to use these prefixes as we do here in just a moment, which I'll go through. One question that comes up from time to time is people will say, well, how do you know which one to put first? In general, and this isn't always the case, but oftentimes what you're going to do is you're going to put the leftmost or lower left one first. There are some exceptions to that. I don't really want to get into that, and primarily because I'm going to be giving them to you in order. So you just name them in the order that you're given in my class. But that's typically the rule, although as with chemistry, there are many exceptions to everything, it seems. So anyway, so let's name this first one. With these, what we're going to do is we're going to use these prefixes, and the nice thing about this type of naming is your prefixes are simply based on the number of atoms present. So in this case, I have 2 chlorines, so if you notice I come over here, what is the prefix for 2-di? So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to name this as dichlorine, and I only have 1 oxygen, so it's going to be monoxide. Now notice that just like in the ionic, the name of the second thing, if it's a single element, which in this case it always will be, I always change that ending to IDE. But there's only one of them, so it's simply dichlorine monoxide. Now one thing I want to mention is you will always use a prefix for everything unless there is just one of the first, which we're going to see down here in just a moment, but you'll never put a mono at the beginning, and you'll see that in just a second. So let's do this next one first. Okay. P4, well, the prefix for 4 is tetra, as you'll see on the right side of the screen. So we're going to call this tetra phosphorus. And again, notice I am not changing the ending of the first one at all. And then the prefix for 10 is decoxide, or decasulfide. And so we just fill that one in. Okay, so again, I just use the prefix to write everything out. Now this third one is an example of what I was just saying to you. I don't do mononitrogen. I just go nitrogen. And then what I do is, what's the prefix for 3? If you look over here, it's tri, and this is going to be trifluoride. So again, notice I did not do mono at the beginning. You don't do mono for the first thing. If you just see it like this, if it's just nitrogen, that means there's only one of them. So in this case, of course, that's NF3. Now let's go backwards, but I think going backwards is really easy because the prefix simply tells you how many there are. In this case, dinitrogen means the formula is N2, tetroxide means it's O4. And so that's all you would do with that. Again, if you see something like carbon and say disulfide as an example, what's happening with this is, notice there's no prefix in front of the carbon, so that means it's just C, and then S2 references the disulfide. So, and the way you would know that again is carbon is to the upper right portion of the line, and so therefore you are using these prefixes and doing the naming. So that's it. That's how you're going to name binary covalent compounds. The next videos we're going to start doing the acid naming. I hope you enjoyed it.